sing. It's not. I won't like the idea of the fame, but I know I'm supposed to sing. She said, but you know what's really weird, Ron? We got a call this morning, and they changed the first release to Blue.
Wow.
And that was the first time I just knew, and I knew it was. And the craziest thing was when it happened. We were in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
We'd gone to that recording session because the whole album hadn't been recorded when Blue got released.
Okay.
And we were in that recording session, and then we go to eat at Cracker Barrel, and nobody knew who she was or what she looked like or anything. And the song Blue had just come out on the radio, and they were just buzzing about it. And you could hear, man, this girl, and she's like 13 years old, and oh my gosh, I never heard a voice like it. It sounds like Patsy Cline. And then something comes on the news that Patsy Cline's husband was driving down the road and heard the song and had to pull his car over and started tearing up and all this stuff. And we were just sitting there listening to all this stuff, going, they don't know who she is. They don't know what she looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was surreal.
That she was sitting there in that Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was so surreal.
That's pretty cool.
That's so wild. And this would have been
this is
like 96 is when
1996.
When all this is
and
happening.
within a year's time, I got to meet almost everybody and visit with that I grew up listening to on the radio out there in the country. And 3 miles east of Louisville was like in the middle of nowhere back then. So it was crazy, yeah.
That's totally wild.
From barber to songwriter.
Yeah, and you ask about what it's like to have the gold records and the platinum records. Yeah. I don't know about the gold because what happened is that first record broke all kinds of records for a female in the business. It was the biggest selling album, I believe, by a female up to that time in country music. It shipped 5.5 times platinum. Shipped.
Good grief.
Yeah. And I was in...
so they don't even have a category for that, really, is what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying it wasn't like I went from seeing it go to this to this to this.
It was just
it shipped 5.5 times platinum.
So like when it because it came out.
The initial printing was
the initial
monstrous.
printing was 5.5 million copies, and they all shipped and sold out through. And then the other crazy thing about it is that
because it's each like level of platinum is per million, so that's quintuple platinum, and it's first pressing.
Yep. And then, when I first met her, she had talked about wanting to go do a gospel album.
Yeah.
I said, what are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm going to Tyler and work on my gospel album. Gospel album?
Tyler.
And I wasn't where I am now.
Right.
Completely. And I said, I thought you were doing like country music. She says, yeah, but I'm going to do a gospel album. And then whenever I get famous, then I'm going to release that. And I'm like, really?
If you're going to go to any Texas town to do gospel, what would you pick?
Shoot.
She worked with Bernie and Tyler?
I don't know, but Tyler was a good place for her.
Yeah.
So what happened later on
Austin.
is when she found the song How Do I Live, she told me that song reminded her of how she felt about God, and she couldn't wait for me to hear it. And she planted that song on that gospel album that she recorded when she was 11, and it became, and we were the night before the Grammys, we're sitting there writing another song that wound up getting cut later called Together Forever Always. And we just had a talk, and I said, you know why this has happened to you, don't you? It's like God has ordained what you're doing. You know? And about that time, and we had VH1 turned way down, it said LeAnn Rimes just became, and none of us knew this was coming, the first artist in history to have an album go #1 country, #1 pop, and #1 Christian on the Billboard Top 100.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so on the record that How Do I Live got delivered on, which How Do I Live at the time became the longest charting song in the history of Billboard from the beginning of the charts.
Yeah.
It was on the charts longer than any other song. Something may have broken that record since then, I don't know. But at the time, it charted for over 52 weeks. Like in the top 10. And so, before it came all the way back off the chart.
Yeah.
It was like 100 and something, I forget, between 52. It was like a year and a half that it was on the chart. And it broke every record of every song, Love Me Tender, I fall to pieces. You name it.
Do
That's
you,
so wild.
I know.
yeah.
So it's like God just said to me, not only do I understand what needs to happen here, I'm going to teach you some things about life, and you're not going to be able to deny that I was the reason that it happened. And that changed me forever.
Was it difficult? So, like, knowing her, she's like your daughter. She's very young, so she's in '96. She's only 14 years old, right? What's it like writing songs that are meant for a mature audience, right? Not like in content, but writing songs that's meant for a woman to sing or a man to sing love songs, especially is what she was particularly known for a kid, or as a songwriter. What was it also like seeing this person that you cared about, who you looked at as one of your daughters, having songs pitched to her that were obviously for a much more grown-up audience?
Well, the first record had a lot of really grown-up songs on it, and I did not participate in writing those.
Yeah.
The first song that I wrote with her that had the most promise that wound up on the Blue album was a song about, the opening line is, I can tell you've been crying on the inside. I can see right through your eyes what you're trying to hide. You got a real big wall covering up, Now we had to flip it to be a love song, what you're feeling, you covering up what you're feeling for me. Come on, baby, talk to me, But it was about, I could tell there was a lot under the hood there. She was going through a lot of not normal stress for somebody that age.
Right.
And I was always concerned about that. And the very first song that I wrote after I met her, for her and her mom, because her mom really didn't want this to happen. It was so hard for her to see her daughter. She felt like she was going off into the Shark Tank,
She didn't like seeing her. I mean,
well, she just felt like it wasn't going to be a healthy thing for somebody her age, and in many
it rarely
ways,
is, right?
In many ways, she was right. But LeAnn survived it. But it's like, So the very first song that I wrote right after I met him is, I can see that your sun is about to rise, because you got that world by the tail, look in your eyes. But if you should find that world unkind, remember this, And these are, so I always the songs I wrote with her, I always pointed to the spiritual side.
Yeah.
And and I mean the Christian spiritual side, more than anyone deserves.
Yeah.
If I woke up, tomorrow and my eyes couldn't see, in the darkness there'd be beauty, in love, and I'd love longer and wider, deeper and higher, because I've been loved more than anyone deserves.
Yeah.
So I didn't write those, but yeah, it was hard for me to hear those songs.
Yeah.
But I knew her well enough to know that she looked at this as like she was an actor, and
And she did some of that too later in her career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She was a better actor than the aforementioned Britney Spears.
in Road Trip?
In Road Trip, yeah.
Is that
Crossroads?
Okay,
Crossroads,
I don't know if there's very many appearances that she made.
No, there weren't a ton, but yeah.
Britney Spears is also a very hard worker.
Yeah, she was. She was incredibly, and much the same as what we saw. There were a lot
Let's
of.
get off the Britney Spears highway.
Well, no, I'm just gonna say there were a lot of young ladies in that era, from like the mid '90s to the mid 2000s to the mid aughts,
with chokers
that like ran themselves ragged,
Went into
and
flames,
ended up burning out. And I wonder too, like how many of them, if they were to rise to prominence today, how many of them would have been handled differently,
right.
Because of what we know now. But would we have known any of that if we hadn't seen, some of these ladies just go through all that?
The
that
greed
turmoil.
that drives so much of what the business can be hasn't changed. And, that was the most difficult thing for me, because I was so concerned about her well-being, and, I was trying to find a way to express it to her, and I wrote a song. I was praying that I would get a song.
Yeah.
And I realized the prayer was a song.
Wow.
It says, "Oh Lord, I come to you on bended knee, not for me, no, not for me, but for the one who's traveling down your road, the little one with the heavy load. Won't you wrap your arms around her and hold on tight wherever she may be tonight? Keep her safe, keep her warm, protect her heart from the storm. And for those who do her harm, which I saw much of, for those who do her harm, won't you take them in your arms and help them fail and keep her safe and well? Because I had a lot of the same concern her mom had, and we shared those concerns, but she's,
Seeing over the years people wishing, maybe attempting to cause harm.
there were a lot of people that would come around somebody like her for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they would always be found out.
Yeah.
But before they were found out, they could do, a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
But she was supremely talented, and you were too. And I think you've given, not just to LeAnn, but I can say in the same vein, and I've heard her talk about you on a couple of occasions in interviews and things, that she talked about the same thing that I saw as a young musician, and that is your consistent encouragement and your guidance were just completely, I think, irreplaceable in what's helped me to be able to remain in music. Well, we end on that note. We're going to switch gears because we end all of our interviews with a segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness, which is just some rapid fire